The Last of Us, Episode 8, When We Are in Need. Well, the last we saw of Joel and Ellie, they were hiding out in that house, and Joel was extremely ill from the stab wound that Ellie had stitched up. So they were running out of food, so Ellie went out and went hunting. She shot a deer. Unfortunately for her, 2 men discovered her. They barter. David, sent James back to their camp to get medicine, and they were going to trade that for half of Ellie's deer. Ellie and David were talking while they were waiting for James to return. David told her that a crazy man who was traveling with a girl had killed one of his community members that he had sent out to go looking for supplies. Even though James had a gun on Ellie and had the drop on her, David chose to give her the medication. Ellie took off.
She got the antibiotics and she came back to Joel, and she was giving Joel antibiotics.
Unfortunately for Ellie, David sent his cronies back out to go searching for her. While she was trying to lead them away from where Joel was, they managed to shoot her horse, and she was knocked out, and she wakes up back at their encampment. Fortunately for Ellie, she had left Joel with a knife before she took off. So when David's men were going through the little town where Joel and Ellie had been hiding out, Joel manages to wipe out pretty much all the guys that David had sent. And he did it in a rather spectacular way. He got the information out of them as to where they had taken Ellie. Meanwhile, back at David's little camp, it turns out it is a really messed up place. David is some sort of religious preacher cult leader. He is quite taken with Ellie's vicious heart, shall we say, and he feels that they are two of the same, and he doesn't have to pretend with her to be a decent person. When she rebuffs his advances, he gets very angry. As it turns out, these people at David's little cult, they are running out of food, or they have run out of real food, and they have been eating people, so they are cannibals. Ellie spies an ear nearby her cage. She asks David if they're going to chop her up into little pieces. So when she rebuffs David's advances, she breaks his finger. He is really angry with her, and he tells her that he's going to chop her up into little pieces. So the next day, when they come to chop her up into little pieces, she tells them that she's infected and to look at her arm, and they do. They think it's some sort of trick because how could she have been bitten and she hasn't turned yet? While they're distracted with her arm, she grabs the meat cleaver. She stabs James in the neck and kills him, and she manages to get away. A chase ensues. She throws a lit log at David inside the lodge, catches the drapes on fire, so this place is fairly soon engulfed in flames, and she and David are hunting each other inside this lodge, and she eventually manages to stab him. He gets the drop on her, but while she's on the ground, she manages to be able to reach for the knife, and she stabs him, and she doesn't stop stabbing him, and that's the end of David. She runs out the door, runs into Joel, and that's where we are left with this episode.
After Ellie got captured and Joel was there left with the knife that she gave him, Joel went caveman on the guys that were there, and he extracted information of where they took Ellie in a very interesting way with knives and a lead pipe involved. And although Ellie did save herself, Joel was there to say, look, it's me, let's get going. Because Ellie went a bit cave woman herself when at the end of their encounter at that lodge restaurant, and she got the best of David, she was on top of him. She was excessively making sure that he was done.
Oh yeah, that was the end of him, very much so. Yeah, I was actually really proud of Ellie in this episode, whereas in previous episodes, she had proven to be a little bit incapable, and it seemed like Joel was hesitant to teach her things like how to field dress an animal, things like that, allowing her to have a gun. And she handled herself really well in this situation. So that was fantastic. There were a few differences between this and the video game. The biggest one was that in the video game, David wasn't a religious preacher cult leader. So that was very different.
Yeah, because for the most part, it followed the game. There were some slight differences here and there, but overall it was mostly following the game. But that religious twist, unless we missed parts of the cutscenes from our video we were watching, that was a big introduction in the TV show, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. It just seemed like having the obsessed religious preacher person taking care of his flock at all costs. We've seen that type of thing throughout movie and TV watching. To me, that was disappointing. At least when we watched the video game, him and his community were just these cannibal people doing whatever they were doing. In the game, it wasn't clear how many people knew they were cannibals. In the TV show, there was only a select few that knew they were cannibals. In fact, we suspected, based on what happened earlier in the episode, that perhaps people who are missing from that community are chosen to be food for the rest of the group.
Yeah, the other difference in the video game versus what we saw in the episode, in the video game, while Ellie and David were waiting for James to come back with the medicine, they were attacked by clickers. So in the video game, she and David had to work together to fight off all these clickers. So it made a lot more sense in the video game at the end when he was telling her how impressed he was with how she handled herself and how he felt like they were the same and they should be partners. It made a lot more sense in the video game once I'd seen that part of the story. Whereas in the TV show, they hadn't had that kind of bonding experience and he hadn't really seen what Ellie could do. So it was kind of odd that he was that insistent that they were very similar people, other than he was obviously a pedophile. That was a difference that I wish they had included something like that in the TV show to establish more of why he wanted Ellie by his side.
Another similarity between the video game and the TV show is when Ellie was first captured, she was refusing to give her name, and David was trying really hard to get her name. The way she gave her name was David was talking to her through the cell bars, and as he was talking to her, he was trying to get, I don't want to say romantic, but he was trying to form a bond there by rubbing her hand.
He was making a romantic overture toward her.
And she was pretending at first to go along with it. And then she smashed his finger. And I think she said she thought she broke his finger because she was trying to grab the keys from his belt or wherever. And so as he was walking away, she was saying, she gave her name. She said, "You tell the rest of them that it was Ellie that broke your effing finger." And so that's how Ellie revealed her name to David.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, so in this episode, I felt that Bella Ramsey actually did a really good job as Ellie. I think the writing helped contribute to that because as far as Ellie's character went, it was very, very similar to how she was written in the video game. Yeah, the big differences were with David and the cult and the people in his group as far as what was different between the game and the TV show. Overall, it's weird to say, but I liked this episode.
An episode with cannibalism at the center of it. And yeah, it was an interesting watch. I feel a bit weird saying that, but it is what it is. Yeah,
it was very cliche, the whole religious cult part, but at the same time, it was good to see Ellie finally looking more like the version of her we see in the video game. That was really nice. I thought that was a good development of her character. So, yeah, if you're not put off by things like cannibalism and, horses getting shot and, Peter files, then yeah, this was a really great episode. However, if you don't like those things, I say definitely don't watch this.
At least in I want to call it post-apocalyptic, but maybe it qualifies as that. These sort of communities, you would have expected these sort of bizarre setups to happen. So at least from that perspective, it's interesting to watch a community like this happen. Not everybody, like where Tommy's at, is set up in this nice, mostly healthy community. This was definitely not a healthy community. They were all banding together to survive. I guess it just exposes human beings can do some really horrible things if they get pushed too hard.
They were the Donner Party of the post-apocalyptic world. So did anybody else watch this episode? What were your thoughts? Did you like the change between the video game and what we saw on the HBO series? Or were you not happy about the changes? What did you think about Ellie's character coming more in line with, both of them coming more in line with each other? Was that a good development for you? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Take care.